every sphere of life, there are icons and trailblazers who become leading lights in their chosen area of endeavor. Take, for instance, in business technology innovation, you have personalities like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Andre Groove, Mike Adenuga, Jim Ovia, Dangote. Remember the talk show icon Oprah Winfrey, who is a leading talk show personality in the world. When you think about boxing, you think about people like Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard. And in football, there are iconic personalities like Pele, Maradona, J.J. Okocha, and Kanu Nwankwo. In leadership, people like Nelson Mandela comes to mind, JF Kennedy, Bill Clinton. These are all-time iconic leadership personalities that have changed their world. In religion, people like Billy Graham, E.A. Adeboye, Omar Opai, T.L. Osborne, Rehan Bonke, T.D. Jakes. These are iconic people in the Christian world. There are fundamental traits that underlines the characters of leaders, and that is what we want to look into. 20 traits of great leaders. First of all, a leader must seek to know and understand himself. When you look at yourself, you're a pool of abilities and deposits, strengths and weaknesses. It is left for you as a leader to understand your core strength and your weaknesses. When you are able to know your areas of strength, then you can maximize that area. A leader is someone who has the capacity to assess him or herself in such a way that you should be able to tell what you can do, what your abilities are. It didn't take too long for Bill Gates to understand that he has the gift of a business entrepreneur against the advice of his parents to pursue a legal career. After a proper evaluation of his strengths and weaknesses, he saw the fact that he needed to take on the vision and the prospect of becoming an entrepreneur. So he did. So if you are aspiring to be a leader, you must tell yourself the truth by taking a proper evaluation of your strengths and weaknesses and then coming up with your own strong points. Take a sheet of paper and put down what your strengths and weaknesses are, your talents, your abilities, your potentials. Put them down and then juggle them. You'll be able to tell yourself the truth about who you are, where you are, and where you hope to be. From the above description, it means we're able to extract 3 other principal traits of a leader. A great leader must be able to think independently. A great leader must have the ability to work for his or her inner convictions. A great leader is willing to stand alone. And number 5, one of the most important, is that a great leader must have vision. Vision is the capacity to see the future from today. Vision is the ability to see what others are not able to see. Vision is the capacity to see tomorrow. In the words of Martin Luther, even though he existed in the time when America had a Great Depression, at the time of racism, he was able through his inner sight to picture a day when black or white will be able to live in relative equality. He said, I have a dream that one day the jangling discourse of this nation shall be transformed into a symphony of brotherhood. That black or white, they will be able to stand together on the platform of equality. And today, that vision, that dream came to fulfillment. How many of us believe that a black man of all people can one day become the president and leader of America? These things came courtesy of the vision a man had close to 50, 60 years ago. So you must have a vision. Where do you want to be? So as a person, you have to plot your vision coordinates by projecting in the future in a time scale basis. In 5, 10, 15 years time, where do you hope to be? One man called Apostle Paul, who was one of the most visionary personalities in the Bible, wrote 3/4 of the New Testament. He did that by questioning himself. In the book of Acts 9 verse 16, he said to God, what will you have me do? That was the beginning point of his revolutionary practice as a preacher. He taught the whole of Europe, the whole of Middle East, the whole of Asia, preaching the gospel of our Lord Jesus, because he was motivated by the principle of vision. He saw tomorrow, he saw the future, he saw the landscapes, he saw the harvest that was ripe with souls that needed to be touched. So his evangelistic zeal rested on the paradigm of vision. Now, you have to do something. Take a piece of paper and write down where you would like to be, or where you probably hope to see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then chart your visionary coordinates and then match them with actions. The truth is that not everybody that has physical eyes, vision is spiritual. And that is why somebody said that blind minds are worse than blind eye. So when you sit down, what do you see of yourself? What do you picture of yourself? There are people who are blind who have even done more quality and creative works than people who have eyes. What do you think about Stevie Wonder? He is blind. Physically he cannot see, but he is one of those legendary musical composers of our time. Now, how do you think that Abraham was able to reproduce the will of God in his life and the generations after him? God brought him out on the platform of vision. He was able to project into the future. God told him, Abraham, what do you see? The things you see you will inherit, which means vision is central to what God wants to do in our lives. You should be able to project where you are, where you want to be, and what the future holds for you. Number 6, great leaders are great motivators of the people. Someone who is able to motivate and inspire others. Great leaders do not compete, they complement. Take for instance David. Even at the death of Saul, he still said that Saul was a mighty man, which means even when we don't like somebody, we can still spot the things that are good about the person. He wept and lamented, how are the mighty fallen? Remember that Saul was one of his fiercest enemies when he was alive, but David did not mind. Great leaders see the best in others, irrespective of who the person is, to achieve the desired result. J.F. Kennedy inspired the American mission to the moon by telling them we want America to land the first person in the moon by the turn of the century, and it happened. So are you a motivator of people? Do you inspire people by what you do, by the product of your life? Number 7, leaders seek to reproduce themselves in others. Jesus was able to reproduce himself, his abilities and his potentials in the 12 men that worked with him. In a space of 3 years, he had the capacity to produce world changers, people who turned around the world, people who turned the society in which they live. Wherever you find yourself as a leader, in the office, in the church, or in the community around you, you should be able to reproduce your skills and potentials in the life of others so that they also can become world leaders. Number 8, great leaders understand the reason and systems of their leadership, and they do everything within their power and means to make sure they succeed and deliver the reason for which they are in the leadership position. Think about Esther. In the book of Esther, we were told that she understood the reason why God brought him in such a privileged position. She had access to the king, and she was able to turn around that privilege for the benefit of Israel. Why were you elected? Why did you find yourself in that privileged seat? That should be the question uppermost in your mind. You should seek for opportunity to turn around and change the situations and circumstances of the people around you. Once you get that opportunity, maximize it and optimize it to such ends. Number 9, great leaders are merchants of hope. What it means is that even when everyone else loses hope, even when everyone else could not see the light at the end of the tunnel, a leader has the capacity to see hope. So a leader is a merchant of hope. How hopeful are you that the situations and circumstances around you can be turned around by simple faith and belief that you have the capacity and the resources to change things. Number 10, every great leader should be a person of character, great character, impeccable character, honesty, integrity, someone without blemish. The Bible said of Jesus that the devil came to him and he found nothing wrong in him. So if you're projecting to be a leader that will outlast your time and generation, you must be a person of impeccable character, someone who is upright, someone without blemish, someone everybody can talk about, without doubt in their mind that this man, this woman is a woman of character. Now, so many of us are confused about the fact that they are gifted. Being gifted should not replace the place of character. Your character is the foundation upon which the leadership structure is built. So in all you're getting, try and get character. Number 11, leaders are bold and courageous. Nelson Mandela stood in the prison for 27 years in Robben Island, refusing conditional release for the freedom of South Africa. He said to them, "It is better for me to die than come out of jail without a free South Africa." So leaders are bold and courageous. They are not afraid. They are willing to step forward to defend their convictions. Number 12, great leaders are not afraid to fail. There are so many people who have a lot of dreams, a lot of potentials, but they don't want to step out because they are afraid to fail. They have a complex about failing. So they rather sit back. It is better to step out and make mistakes than sit down and do nothing. So great leaders are not afraid to fail. So what are those dreams and visions in your heart? Are you sitting back because you don't want to launch out? In the words of John Maxwell, he said, failure is the price we pay for success. Are you ready to pay for your success today? Even if you have failed in the past and you keep failing, it's not a sufficient reason for you to keep sitting down. The Bible, the great book, even said it, that the righteous falls 7 times and he rises up. So rise up and strap up yourself, whichever position you find yourself, and look into the horizon and move forward. That's one of the characteristics of great leaders. Number 13, great leaders are people who seek to improve themselves. Leaders are great readers. Even Jesus was moving into the synagogue and out of the synagogue day after day, week after week, seeking to improve himself through the instrument of books. He was very happy the day he found himself in the book, and he said, this day, the prophecy and the things that God has said about me had come to fulfillment. Are you sure your books? Jesus was not sure your books. Many of us have not been able to improve themselves professionally, spiritually, just for the fact they don't see what is ahead of them in the future. If you see your future and you're able to comprehend what God has set forth for you or what destiny has in store for you, you should be able to do all you can to improve yourself. Go to school. Associate yourself with people who have more knowledge than you do in your chosen area. Look for mentors. Look for people upon whose shoulders you can climb. In the words of Isaac Newton, he said, if I suffer, I stood on the shoulders of giants. There are people who can see the terrain further than you do. Why not associate with them? Do you have the capacity to improve yourself? Some of us are suffering from local champion mentality or grasshopper mentality. You think you know it all. There's no how you can be an expert in all the 48 disciplines in the world. You can learn from somebody, your associate, your colleague in the office, someone you meet in the church. God had opened different sources of knowledge. Today, knowledge abounds everywhere, even in the internet, even in the Bible, even in several books in the library people have written, just to make sure that we maximize the resources and the pool of knowledge in books. So avail yourself of those opportunities to make yourself better. Someone said, if better is possible, good is not enough. Great leaders are those who seek to improve themselves to get better with life. Even the Bible said it in the book of Luke that Jesus Christ grew in grace and he was in favor with God and with man. There are two types of relationship: vertical relationship and horizontal relationship. Vertical relationship is your relationship with God and those that are higher than you. Horizontal relationship is the relationship you have with men, your equals. Maximize those two relationship axes and you'll be better. Number 14, great leaders are people of intelligence and wisdom. And that's why the Bible said, in order get wisdom and get understanding. The first resource that King Solomon sought after was not the armory of the army of Israel. It was wisdom from God. He was able to jettison everything around him to seek for that wisdom, because the Bible said that wisdom is the principal key. Intelligence is a key requirement in modern leadership. Great leaders are people of humility. Are you humble? Great leaders do not necessarily see themselves as above and superior to the people they are leading. The Bible even said it in the book of Philippians that Jesus humbled himself. He came down to serve. Do you see yourself as a servant? A leader is necessarily a servant. Someone who serves others. Someone who is able to come to the level of others. When you are unable to come to the level of the people you're leading, you cannot necessarily impact them with your leadership. The pain of leadership in Africa is that we have a lot of leaders who see themselves as masters and the people they are leading as servants. Jesus Christ gave us the best possible model of leadership. He shared the quality with the people he came to lead. And that's why, even though he was God and had all the attributes of the Godhead, he came down in material form as man. That is called the principle of identification. You must identify with the peculiar situation and circumstances of the people you are leading to be able to impact them. Do not show any form of superiority over the people you are leading. Number 16, great leaders seek to outlive today. What it means, they are not trapped by the trappings of power and success and materialism. They are able to make the necessary sacrifice and do the kind of work that will sustain their leadership heritage above and beyond their immediate time. Number 17, a leader, a great leader for that matter, does not necessarily seek to please everybody. Every great leader should have the capacity and courage and the nerve to say no. Let your no be no, let your yes be yes. You should always strive to be known for what you believe and your convictions. Do not play to the gallery. Do not be a country club leader. Do not be a happy-go-lucky leader. Be a leader of conviction. Someone who is able to align himself with your convictions. Be a leader of positive projections. Number 18. Every leader must have what you call compassion or sense of empathy. That is, feeling the way the people you're leading are feeling. Putting yourselves in their shoes. So many leaders in Africa do not necessarily understand or feel what the followers are going through. The pain of leadership in Africa is the fact that so many of them are riding on their high horses without doing temperature checks to find out how exactly the people they are leading are faring. It is morally wrong for you to have all the riches and privileges to yourself while the people you're leading are scrounging. They are beggars. They are never do wells. They are people who are not faring well in every parameter of basic living. And I think Jesus gave us the perfect example because he was compassionate. He came to his disciples and asked them, the multitude who have been following us day after day, do they have something to eat? Do they have something to drink? It was at that point that the miracle of 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread happened. Which means once a leader have the passion and the compassionate ability to find out how his followers are faring, something great usually happens. That is the meeting point, the connection point between the leader and the follower. Unfortunately, most leaders in Africa do not create such veritable interface between themselves and the people they are leading. And that is why their leadership hardly makes meaning, because it cannot impact the bottom line of the common man. Every leadership makes meaning based on the level of impact, based on the level of contact, based on the level of how much the leader is able to change the life of the common man on a day-to-day basis. Jesus did it, and that was why each place he went to, they thronged and they longed and they pant after him. He appealed to the 3 dimensions of man. He appealed to the spiritual dimension of man. He appealed to the material dimension of man. And he also appealed to the soul dimension of man. A great leader must combine this holistic approach to leadership in making sure that he delivers the best to the needs of his people. Number 20, every leader must have the capacity to break away from his or her personal limitations. We are born into a world of limitation, and everybody can be limited by reason of his or her circumstances. Now, there was a man in the Bible called Jabez. The Bible said that he was born in sorrow. So many of us were born into poverty. So many of us was born into physical handicaps. So many of us were born into circumstances that makes it difficult for us to catch a glimpse or a picture of success. And these are handicaps. But for the fact that Jabez understood that he was born into sorrow, he said to God, he made a prayer, God, if you will bless me and enlarge my cause. Great leaders are people who do not see the limitations around them. What are the limitations you think you have? Is it that your parents did not send you to school? There are people who never went to school, but they succeeded. Some of the great successful business entrepreneurs and leaders we have today, some of them did not pass through the 4 walls of the university. Bill Gates, for instance, was a dropout. Think about people like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs did not complete his university education, but these people went ahead to become iconic personalities in the world of business and technology. So what do you think can be the major limitation in stopping you to getting where you want to get to? Some people have gender limitation. They say, because I'm a woman, I cannot make it. I cannot compete in the arena where men are already dominant. Do you remember that there are 3 women today who are heads of state of nations? Think about Germany. Think about Brazil. Think about Margaret Thatcher, who was the former Prime Minister of Great Britain. So don't let your gender or sex or family limitations or personal limitations cripple your vision of greatness. What about Stevie Wonder, the great musical compositor of our time? You remember in the last Martin Luther Day, of all people, he was the one called up to perform on that beautiful day. And it is on this note we're closing. But remember the fact that God has given you everything you need to succeed. In the book of Proverbs 25 verse 2, it says, it is the honor of a king to hide a matter, and it's the honor of someone, a servant, to search it out. So you have to discover the purpose and reason for which God made you. It's possible he has called you to be a business innovator. It's possible he has called you to be a religious personality. It's possible he has called you to be an entrepreneur. It's possible he has called you into one area of endeavor or another. But why do you sit down and sulk and bemoan your fate like Gideon did When the angel came to Gideon, he said, Gideon, you are a mighty man of valor. And Gideon replied, if I were to be a mighty man of valor, why has all these things befallen me? God is not looking at the negative circumstances around you or your personal limitations. He is looking at the future and the destiny He has laid out ahead of you. Take advantage of it. Probably you're not as physically endowed as you want to be. Probably when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't cast the image of a great leader. But know it today that you have all it takes to dominate your area of endeavor. That leader is in you crying out. You can give it expression by stepping out, taking hold of your future in your hands, and then looking unto God. He will transform you to become the leader He has made you to be. See you at the top.
This broadcast was brought to you courtesy of Contact International, a human capacity development organization with the passion to make people better. At Contact International, we help individuals and corporates develop to their potentials by creating new perspectives through the power of quality information. We aspire to raise leaders in all spheres, business, church, societies, through effective coaching classes derived from tested business models. We believe you too can become a leader. I've been listening.